Yo. Welcome back to Son of a Preacher Man. As always, I'm your host, Soap Man. Here to clean your mouth out with another episode. First and foremost, I want to apologize for my shabby last episode. It was rushed. I kept having to do mic checks and sound checks. I think we got that in order. So, we're gonna just jump right off into it. In my last episode, we talked about Gideon, right? Remember? Let's do a quick recap. Gideon selects 300 choice men. They go out to defeat the Midianites. They herd them down, I don't know if you want to call it a valley, a ravine. You see this right here? If you see my arrow, it says the Valley of Jezreel. And it was kind of in that valley where they confronted and spooked the Midianites. Put them on the run down this bigger valley down. They hugged the river as they ran. And Gideon and his troops harassed them, killing them along the way. They set up an ambush with the tribe of Ephraim. The Ephraimites crossed the Jordan River first. And so the Midianites ran right into them. They finally finished them off, caught the two kings of the Midian in Karkor. And I pronounced that incorrectly in my last video. I apologize also for that. Now we had left off with Gideon winning the battle. The Ephraimites coming to Gideon all macho and crazy, talking about, how come you ain't tell us you was going to fight? And Gideon retiring in his good old age with many wives, 70 sons. And one of the things I didn't talk about in my last episode was when Gideon slayed the two kings. When Gideon slays the two kings of the Midianites, he first calls his son Jotham. He tells them, let me go back. Let me see if I can find it. Look at Judges. Yeah, here we go. So it says, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong episode. Let me get right. Okay, it says, sorry folks. Then said he to Zebah and Zalmunna. Now this is after Gideon catches the two kings of Midian. It says, then he said unto Zebah and Zalmunna, what manner of the men were they whom ye slew at Tabor? So what he's letting you know is something has happened that's not in the Bible. We didn't learn until late in Gideon's story that his relatives were killed in this war that he's fighting in. We don't learn that until now, at the end of his story. It says, then said he, meaning Gideon, to Zebah and Zalmunna, who are the kings of Midian, what manner of the men were they whom ye slew at Tabor? He's talking about something that the Bible doesn't tell you about. There was a battle that went down at Tabor. And now we learn that Gideon, some of his relatives were there. And it says, and they answered, as thou art, so were they. Each one resembled the children of a king. And he said, meaning Gideon, they were my brethren, even the sons of my mother. So his blood brothers were killed at this battle at Tabor that we're just now learning about. And so it puts a different perspective when you find out something new, when you find out a new fact, when you have a new piece to the puzzle. It changes your perspective. Now we see that Gideon wasn't just plucked out of thin air. There's been a struggle going on. And so let me not go off on a tangent. So they said the men were princely, regal, like you. And he said they were my brethren, even the sons of my mother. He lets them know they're not just his brother in arms. They're not just his play brothers. Those were his blood brothers. And he said, they were my brethren, even the sons of my mother, as the Lord liveth. If ye had saved them alive, I would not slay you. And he said unto Jether, his firstborn, up and slay them. But the youth drew not his sword, for he feared, because he was yet a youth. Gideon calls his son. These are the times. That's why I'm emphasizing this. I'm going into this much detail. These were the times. He called his son up to kill these men. But his son was too afraid because his son wasn't ready yet. He was too young. He couldn't do it. It's not easy to kill a man. But here Gideon is trying to get his son ready. These are the times of the judges. It says he said to Jether his firstborn, up and slay them. But the youth drew not his sword, for he feared, because he was yet a youth. And Zebah and Zalmunna said, rise thou and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. So Zebah and Zalmunna, the two kings of Midian, they begging Gideon for their life. They like, dude, don't let this little kid hack us up, give us at least a semi-quick death. That would be torture to have a little young, careless, inexperienced kid trying to kill somebody. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to kill somebody. And if you don't know what you're doing, it could be a pretty messy situation. You know what I mean? So anyways, Gideon gets into it with the Ephraimites. They have a little dispute, and I talked about that in my last episode, how the Ephraimites, they like to fight, and so they was throwing their weight around. And it says at the end of Gideon's days, at the end of the battle rather, instead of, the men wanted Gideon to become king and they wanted his sons to rule after him. Gideon said, no, I'll pass on the kingship. God is who we serve. He says, but bring me all the earrings of your prey. So they brought him all the gold ornaments and earrings of their prey, chains, fancy garments. And Gideon melted down the gold and made an ephod. And I don't think that was in Gideon's intention was for the ephod to start getting worshipped, but that's what happened. These godless people who have totally forgot where they've come from and the God of their fathers, they start worshiping the golden ephod. So I think it was really, it backfired. Gideon's intentions backfired on him. But so are the days of the judges. Long gone are the days of Moses. These people really don't know who God is. They really don't know what they're doing. God is helping these people reluctantly. These few glimmers or shimmers of hope that they have in these judges is all God is willing to give them. These judges, the heroes of this story, the judges, they are flawed. They are flawed, and they just keep getting more flawed with each judge. The Bible says that the Israelites were not kind to Jerubaal in his retirement, were not kind to his descendants and his legacy. And it picks right up with his son Abimelech. And if you notice, I had the hero music last episode for Gideon. And I got the solemn, ominous, eerie music, and it's fitting for Abimelech because this dude is a trip. Judges chapter 9, verses 1 through 6 reads, "And Abimelech, the son of Jerubaal, went to Shechem." It's a big city kind of in the middle of the territory that they're in. It says, and Abimelech, the son of Jerubaal, remember Jerubaal is synonymous with Gideon, went to Shechem unto his mother's brethren, his uncles, and communed with them, and with all the family of the house of his mother's father, saying, "Speak, I pray you, in the ears of all the men of Shechem, whether it is better for you either that all the sons of Jerubaal, which are 70 persons, reign over you, or that one reign over you. Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh." And his mother's brethren spake of him in the ears of all the men of Shechem all these words. And their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, "He is our brother." And they gave him 70 pieces of silver. That's the number of 1 piece of silver for each one of his brothers. 70 pieces of silver. And they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal-berith, wherewith Abimelech hired vain and light persons which followed him. He hired some goons. And he went unto his father's house at Ophrah, and slew his brethren, the sons of Jerubaal, being 70 persons, upon 1 stone. Notwithstanding, yet Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubaal, was left, for he hid himself. And all the men of Shechem gathered together, and all the house of Milo, and went, and made Abimelech king, by the plain of the pillar that was Shechem. So, as always, I'm going to read, and then I'm going to narrate. We have a son of Jerubaal, who is Gideon. Gideon had a bunch of wives and a bunch of legitimate sons with those wives. 70, the Bible says. Pretty sure he had some daughters too, but 70 sons. And then he had a child with a concubine, Abimelech. 71 kids in all, 70 legitimate, 1 illegitimate. And Abimelech, the Bible says, goes to his uncles and all of his grandfather on his mother's side, all of their house, and he says, go to the city of Shechem. And he says, convince the people that it's better to serve 1 man than 70. And when he has politically secured his position, he kills his brothers. The Bible says on 1 stone. Now, if y'all done heard me talk before about me being close with my brothers, when the story of Adam and Eve came up and I talked about Cain and Abel, it started then. I'm pretty sure this guy Abimelech grew up an outsider, being that his mom was just Gideon's concubine and not her legitimate wife. But still, and I'm pretty sure he got outcasted. That was the reason he was an outcast. He probably got outcasted. I don't know, maybe he was great with his family. But you know how it usually goes. But still, this is cold-blooded. This is about as cold-blooded and ambitious as you can get. Abimelech, the son of Gideon, killed. He went to his father's home in Ophrah, or wherever it was. He caught this family, lined them up, and executed his blood brothers one by one, all 70 of them. Judges chapter 9, verses 22 through 29 read, when Abimelech had reigned 3 years, and then they crowned him king. One brother gets away. The youngest brother, Jotham, gets away. And when they crown Abimelech, I don't have these verses down, so I'm going to just tell you. When they crown Abimelech, Jotham goes to a hill, that's at a safe enough distance, but still close enough to where he can be heard. And so he screams out like, it's kind of like a riddle. It's kind of like a riddle to Abimelech. And he tells a story about how all the trees wanted a king. And so the trees asked different kinds of trees, would they be the king? And the willow tree said, no, why would I give up my station? I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And they asked the oak tree, and the oak tree said no. And they asked all these different trees to be their king. And all the trees declined. And then Jotham says, and then the bramble came along. And I'm not sure what a bramble is. I'm thinking maybe it's like a tumbleweed, okay? He said, then the bramble came along, and they asked the bramble to be their king. Something that's, what he's saying is a lower class. What Jotham is saying is, to the people of Shechem is, you'll let anybody be king. You want a king so badly. You want to be like these Canaanites around you so badly that you will literally anoint anything to the throne, including Abimelech. Abimelech is the bramble, the tumbleweed, the dustweed that the trees are settling for because no one else wants to do it. So of course Abimelech is steaming, fuming. One, that Jotham got away, and two, that Jotham is humiliating him from a safe distance. Okay, so the Bible says in Judges chapter 9, verses 22 through 29, when Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech, that the cruelty done to the 70 sons of Jerubaal might come, and their blood be laid upon Abimelech their brother, and which slew them, and upon the men of Shechem, which aided him in the killing of his brethren. And the men of Shechem set lies in wait for him in the top of the mountains, and they robbed all that came along that way by them. And it was told Abimelech, and Gaal, the son of the son of somebody, came with his brethren and went over to Shechem. And the men of Shechem put their confidence in him. And they went out into the fields and gathered their vineyards and trade the grapes and made merry and went into the house of their God and did eat and drink and cursed Abimelech. And Gaal, the son of Bade, said, who is Abimelech and who is Shechem that we should serve him? Is not he the son of Jerubaal? And Zebul, his officer, served the men of Hamor, the father of Shechem. For why should we serve him? And would to God this people were under my hand, then I would remove Abimelech. And he said to Abimelech, increase thine army and come out. So 3 years into Abimelech's failed reign, understand this is someone trying to attempt to be the first king of Israel. This is Abimelech's failed and miserable attempt to become king by force of hand. And it says 3 years after the bloody massacre of his brother, of all rivals, 3 years into his reign, the Bible says God puts an evil spirit between him and the men who helped him get to the throne. See, here's the thing: when you build an empire off of a weak foundation, it is bound to crumble. It's called a house of cards. The people who helped Abimelech murder his brothers, which subsequently enabled him to take the throne. The people who aided him didn't respect him from the beginning because of how he got it. He's a murderer. When your boss is a known murderer, it's kind of hard for him to criticize you about anything. So 3 years into his reign, Abimelech starts having trouble with the people who helped him get the throne. And they start following this new guy, Gaal. And Gaal gets so big and puffy to where he says, you know, F Abimelech, I should be in charge. And if Abimelech wants some, he can come get some, is what he basically says, transferring it into Negro translation. And so that's exactly what Abimelech does. He comes and gets some. Judges chapter 9 verses 50 through 57 read, then went Abimelech to Thebes. I'm sorry, not Thebes, it's actually Thebes, probably named after the Egyptian Thebes. It says, then went Abimelech to Thebes and encamped against Thebes and took it. But there was a strong tower within the city, and thither fled all the men and women, and all they of the city, and shut it to them, and got them up to the top of the tower. And Abimelech came unto the tower and fought against it, and went hard unto the door of the tower to burn it with fire. And a certain woman cast a piece of millstone upon Abimelech's head, and all to break his skull. Then he called hastily to the young man his armor bearer, and said unto him, draw thy sword and slay me. And the men say, not of me. So that he says, draw thy sword and slay me, that the men say not of me, a woman slew him. And his young man thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed every man unto his place. Thus God rendered the wickedness of Abimelech, which he did unto his father in slaying his 70 brethren. And all the evil of the men of Shechem did God render upon their heads, and upon them came the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubaal. So this newcomer Gaal comes out, the people back him up, they've turned on Abimelech, who they were formerly in cahoots with. They pump up this new guy, Gaal, the son of somebody's name who I typed incorrectly. He comes out of a neighboring city or a nearby town, and now he's the man. They pumping him up like they once pumped Abimelech up. Abimelech finds himself in one of those situations where, you know, he left his wife for a new chick, and now he done left the new chick. But, you know, now he's the wife that's getting left. So this newcomer Gaal, he challenges Abimelech's authority. He's got the people behind him. And so Abimelech comes out. He gets his army together and he attacks one city that has a tower, and he's able to defeat that city. Then he lays siege to Thebes to catch up to the people who got away from the first city. And this city also has a tower. And as he's pushing hard, fighting hard to burn down the front door or the front gate, a random woman takes a piece of a millstone and casts it down upon his head. A random person, a chick, probably wasn't even aiming, I don't know. Maybe she was. And the Bible says, all to break his skull. He was done for. Random chick, random act. Could have happened to anyone. But Abimelech was fighting against more than the city tower, because he had sown his fate when he killed his brothers. I don't understand what makes somebody think you're gonna get away with something like that. Or maybe You know you're not going to get away with it, and you just don't care. But he had sealed his fate when he did his brother so cold-hearted. And this wasn't coming back on him, this random woman. Look at my arrow right here. Look at the lady up here. Got him. Got him. Bingo. Bullseye. He could have never seen it coming. He could have never seen it coming because he was winning. But, and this is important, this is the thing people don't understand. We do these things to ourselves. What you put out in the world, this is what I've learned. This is what the soap man has learned. Listen up to you. I'm about to drop a jewel on you, okay? What you put out is what you get back in this lifetime. You do some bogus-ish, like what he did to his brothers, you know you got something special coming back to you. It shouldn't be no surprise to you when it comes. Abimelech should have known he was long overdue for, as my mama would say, his comeuppance. And so he gets his noggin cracked, head split to the white meat. He know he's gonna die. He tells his armor bearer next to him, kill me so that I won't go down in history as the man who got slayed by a woman. But you still went down in history as the man who got slayed by a woman. Like old boy Sisera a couple episodes ago, who got his head nailed to the ground with a tent stake. Look, man, you can't be sleeping on these women, brother, okay? Straight up. I remember growing up in high school, it was these two chicks named Lynn and Kenosha Rhea. I have personally seen them knock grown men out bare knuckle gladiator style. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Like straight up and down. You can't be sleeping on these women, man. Yeah, some of them is feminine and you ought to be ashamed of yourself if you jump on them. Other ones, if you don't treat them like a dude, this will be your fate. So naturally, you know, Abimelech's armor bearer, he don't want to do it. He don't want his guy to sit there and suffer, you know what I'm saying, bleeding profusely. Man, this is the day, man, folks, these is long before the days of, you know, modern day surgery and craniotomies, man. This dude's head is split down to the white meat. It was probably gruesome. He's probably like, kill me. He could probably barely get the words kill me out of his grill, dog. You just don't understand, but I could see it. His dome was crushed. So maybe it wasn't hard for his armor bearer to put him out of his misery, but this is his fate, dog. Not only is his head split open to the white meat by this chick, now he got his own man killing him, dog. This is humiliating and complicated, and this is all at the spur of the moment. This is what you call calamity. This is what you call calamity. It's horrible. It's a horrible, gruesome, and humiliating way to die. And that's exactly how Abimelech goes out. And that's the lesson to you. You know what I'm saying? Don't be like Abimelech. You know what I'm saying? It's ways to get to the top. You know what I mean? Stabbing your boys in the back is one way. Killing your brothers is another way. But this what it lead to. Is it worth it? That's the lesson you're supposed to get from it. Is it worth it? This ain't the way to do it. Being cutthroat and merciless and ruthless and, you know, doing anything to get to the top ain't how you do it. And that's the lesson that's supposed to be learned. So, as promised, I said before, remember the name Jerubaal. I kept telling you for the last couple episodes, remember the name Jerubaal because that's the name that Gideon was given after he pulled and tore down the statue of Baal and the grove nearby on his father's property. And as always, I like to bring these biblical stories to life with archaeological evidence. I like to pull the stories out of the realm of fantasy and put you there as much as I possibly can. Here on your screen, we have a piece of pottery written in some kind of foreign language. I believe it is either Hebrew or Aramaic, but it's written in a Semitic language. And written on this piece of pottery in this foreign language is the name, you guessed it, Jerubaal, also known as Gideon. Now, I don't know what that means to you, but it speaks volumes to me. Because this ain't the first time we've come up with evidence, whether it was weak evidence or strong evidence. And let me say this, the closer we get to modern times, the more evidence there is. So there'll be a lot of archaeological finds that I'm gonna show each episode coming up. Because the closer we get, and it makes sense that the closer we get to modern times, this stuff will be easier to find. It will be, more finds would be more prevalent. So this dates back to the time of the judges. It dates back to the right time, around the 1300s, 1200s, around that period. So it's consistent. And it has this man's name on it, which lends credibility to the story that the Bible tells. It talks about a man named Gideon whose name was changed to Jerubaal, and here we find a piece of pottery with his name on it. For all we know, he could have ate and drank out this bowl. Folks, short episode for you today. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Son of a Preacher Man. If you're new to the channel, please hit the like or subscribe button. If you got any comments, insults, likes, dislikes, recommendations, or just want to chop it up with your boy, if I spell something wrong or said something wrong, if you feel like or if you like, yeah, right on, I can dig it, let me know. You know what I'm saying? Let me know what I'm doing right. Let me know what I'm doing wrong. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Same soap time, same soap channel. We out.